Hi everyone, my name is Cassidy Patterson and I am a graduate student in the Industrial Organizational Psychology program at Eastern Kentucky University. And today we're going to be going over the assessment of the CLA Plus for Eastern Kentucky University. So first let's talk about the objectives of the assessment. Eastern Kentucky University is called in by Workforce for a consultant to find out whether this new assessment, the CLA Plus, will be a good tool for them to implement to have their senior class take. They are not exactly sure of the benefits of this assessment or if it's going to be something that is going to be a useful tool. So it's my aim to assess the psychometric properties of the exam. And it's also my aim to provide the evidence of whether the test will be beneficial for Eastern Kentucky University or not. So on that note, let's start talking about who the client is and why this is important. So as I've already mentioned, the client that we will be talking about today that has called us in for consulting is Eastern Kentucky University. Eastern Kentucky University is a college found in Richmond, Kentucky. They are located not only in Richmond, but they also have remote locations in Corbin, Hazard, Lancaster, and Manchester. They have a pretty large student population with over 14,000 undergraduate students. And when you take into consideration attrition and turnover, we could say maybe a fifth of that might be seniors, which this assessment would directly affect. And Eastern Kentucky University also offers different types of degrees for undergraduate students, with being on campus and also online degrees. So there is a large variety of different types of students that will be possibly using this assessment. So before we get too far into why this assessment will be a good idea for EKU to implement or not, we first must understand what exactly is the CLA Plus assessment. So we know most of us are working adults, and as a consultant and an employer, employers more now than ever, according to the CLA case study, they expect these college graduates to possess writing, critical thinking, and problem-solving skills. And really to them, that's much more important than specific facts and knowledge that we typically seem to get from the university setting. So because this is such an important aspect of what employers are looking for, it's important for the universities to be able to assess whether they are giving these types of competencies to the students that are passing through their programs. So the CLA Plus is tailored specifically for college students. The company that has created this exam also has a separate exam that is based just for high school students, but the CLA Plus is specifically for college students. And it assesses critical thinking skills as well as analysis and problem solving, writing effectiveness, and writing mechanics. And what's really different about this type of exam is that instead of just being able to recall information, this assessment really hones in on these students being able to demonstrate these competencies and these skills in real-world settings so that we can gauge whether or not that they will be able to problem solve once they have left their college setting. So we also must understand the structure of the CLA Plus exam as well to fully see how it's going to be able to measure these competencies that it's meant to measure. So there's actually two parts that make up the CLA Plus exam. There's part 1 and part 2. The first part is a 60-minute segment, and it consists of what they call performance tasks, or PTs. And basically, this part of the exam focuses on assessing situations that could happen in real life work or academic environments. So what the exam is asking for students to do is they give them a situation, and they're asked to analyze the information and give a written response on what decisions they would make based on supporting evidence that they can gather for that decision. So we can see very clearly that problem solving and critical thinking skills are a huge part of the performance task part of the CLA Plus. The part two, what that is bringing to the table is what they're calling selected response items. And so this last portion takes up about 30 minutes, and there's 25 of these selected response items, or what they will also refer to as SRIs. And those specifically measures 3 different types of competencies, and that includes scientific and quantitative reasoning, critical reading and evaluation, and also critiquing and argument. So what we really need to be looking at this point, and what's really important in our decision on whether this is something that EKU should implement or not, is whether this assessment is reliable and valid in nature. Without both of these things, there wouldn't really be a point for Eastern to implement this for their seniors that are about to graduate, because it would mean that it is not doing the task that it was designed to do. So as far as reliability is concerned, when we are looking at this, we first need to go back a little bit and look at the original CLA that was produced. The original CLA had a really high Chromebox alpha. It was actually a 0.8 on an institutional level. So that means looking at an institution-wide assessment, that there was a higher internal consistency, which is great. It means that, overall institutionally, that we are high in reliability. However, the problem was that whenever you were assessing somebody on an individual level, or just a single individual student, the Chromebox alpha was much lower at 0.45, meaning that there was some sort of disconnect between the reliability of measuring the whole institute as a whole and also just measuring somebody on an individual level. So what this company did is they created the CLA Plus. And this has a much higher institutional and individual reliability because of adding the SRIs that we talked about earlier. So basically what this did, it took the PTs and the SRIs and the inter-rater correlation by having these different subsections of assessment. They together, whenever used together, they increase the Chromebox alpha. There's 2 different forms, Form A and Form B, and it actually increase the overall Chromebox alpha to 0.87 and 0.85, which is a substantial increase from the original assessment. So we can see based on that, that is a very reliable measure of critical thinking skills. Also with that, we need to focus on validity as well. So the 2 different types of validity that I want to hone in on is the construct validity and the face validity. So first, for validity, let's talk about the construct validity. And basically what this means is, does this particular assessment, does the CLA Plus, is it correlated with other tasks that measure the same construct, or in this case, critical thinking or problem-solving skills? And what they found whenever they compared this assessment to other tasks or assessments that were measuring the same thing is that it actually did have a strong positive correlation with other tasks that measured critical thinking. And these correlations were anywhere from 0.73 to 0.83, which again, that is closer to 1. That is a positive number, meaning a strong positive correlation with critical thinking. So that's fantastic. Second, we also need to look at the face validity, and basically that is just asking, is it doing what it's intended to do? Is it showing what it intends to show? And so what this company did during their pilot test is they asked students to report whether they felt that the assessment was asking the right questions, and if it was truly gauging the critical thinking, the analytical skills, the writing, and reading comprehension. And what they found is that the students said that the exam was a moderately good assessment at writing, and that was at 78.5%, 88% at reading comprehension, and 86.2% at critical thinking and problem solving. So we can see based off of those numbers that there is high face validity as well, and that the assessment is truly doing what it is intended to do, which is good in our case for Eastern Kentucky University. So let's go over the benefits of implementing the CLA at Eastern Kentucky University. So first, let's talk about the how the new exam has increased validity. They've done this, like I've mentioned before, by adding in the SRIs and combining them with the PTs, so the two parts of the exam. So it has increased the reliability for the individual scores, which is really what the university is going to want to be looking at to see if the individuals have gained those competencies during their time at Eastern Kentucky University. There's also multiple reports on reliability and validity of the assessment in different situations, and that can be found on their website. So it's important to know that this has been successful in other instances as well. Something that's very important that I think is a very big selling point is that the pilot test participants actually reported this assessment as moderately engaging, and that's extremely important because this gives better data. They're getting better data from the participants because they're more engaged and they're giving more accurate reports. And so basically this is going to increase the validity of the exam and give more accurate reports to the university of the students' competency levels. With that being said, the new CLA is more focused on the individual growth, which is really what Eastern is wanting to look at. This can also help gauge competencies needed for the real world, and it can also help assess institutions' efficacy on teaching and learning. So this is really helpful for Eastern Kentucky University because it's going to be able to showcase how the students are improving in these different competencies, and it's going to help their recruitment and retention for future and current students to show we're bringing these people in, we're showing these types of results, these students are growing, they're able to go out into the real world, find employers, be successful employees because they're able to analyze situations and be able to problem solve and use critical thinking skills. And additionally, it's important because faculty will know which skills and competencies that matter, and they'll be able to focus on those within their coursework when structuring their classes. Although we've pinpointed quite a few benefits of using the CLA Plus, it's important to also talk about alternative options as well. One being the possibility of finding a department-specific exam. The CLA Plus is a very broad exam. It is assessing certain competencies, but each department focuses on a different type of learning that their students are getting, and so it might not be a one-size-fits-all type of assessment. Although there is high reliability and validity, it might be wise to look into this to see what the reliability and validity would be like if we found a more specific exam depending on what your major or department looks like. Another exam option is some sort of assessment, and this could be something that EKU creates themselves that the students would take at the beginning and at the end of their college careers. So this would definitely be more individual focused. This would show a baseline of where each of the students start, and then it would show how their competencies and skills grew throughout their time at Eastern. And I think this would be something really important to show how Eastern is actually providing that skill set to the individuals, instead of some of these individuals may already be competent at some of these problem-solving skills on their own that have nothing to do with EKU. So that would be something that they could look at. And also it'd be important to add stakes to the exam, and this would increase engagement, and it would show more valid and reliable data. So we could do this by maybe saying they would be able to graduate, or maybe drop a letter grade in one of your classes before graduating. So overall, I believe the CLA Plus is a really good option. I think it's something that EKU should definitely think about implementing. It has high reliability and validity. We can see that it definitely assesses critical thinking and problem solving skills. It's focused directly on college students, and it can help them attract future students as well. And I think especially for short term, since it is already created and readily available, this is definitely an option that they should consider, and that is my recommendations. Thank you very much.